expressing vulnerability and asking for help is a huge, huge barrier to community building. I think that it's important for us to start talking about that not as a badge of pride, but actually a hindrance for us making meaningful relationships.
I'm Miranda Rake.
And I'm Sarah Wheeler, and this is The Mother of It All, where we take on motherhood through the lens of culture and culture through the lens of motherhood. Good morning, Miranda.
Good morning, Sarah. How are you today?
We can get to that. Is it snowing there?
No, and
Wasn't
I'm
it
glad.
supposed to snow? You look like you look like a snow bunny right now.
It's
you have
very
like
cold.
a very thick wool hat and a full down jacket.
You know, I got back from our trip and it's
The Hawaii trip.
The Hawaii trip.
Are you holding on to any little like winter, essence of it that you're like stroking in the dark of night, or did it all dissipate?
No, I think I have it, and it's making me grumpy because I tasted like summer and then it's so far away.
Yeah.
Here, like
better
it doesn't turn,
not to have loved and
Yes.
lost than to have loved it all. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, it wasn't a mistake, but it was also a mistake. Because now I'm like, oh,
Right.
but it's okay. I'm exploring. A lot of people here go to Palm Springs a lot.
You're
'Cause
exploring Palm Springs.
So I'm like wrapping my head around that. If anyone
You want to start collecting antiques?
yeah, or I just want to swim in a pool in the warm air.
I lived in LA for some time, so I explored Palm Springs extensively.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, they got pools.
That's all I want. I just want to be hot. I just want to be hot.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being
You
cold.
are hot in your little double thick beanie.
I also realize I'm wearing the same thing every day and it's making me depressed. Like, okay, so one
I've been
thing
doing
about
the same thing, but it's because I'm depressed.
Right.
It's like chicken or egg.
Yeah, right.
Go
I
on.
guess I'm assuming. I don't know which it is. But I really like to make a plug for like warm weather and kids. Like, are parents who live in warm places happier because you don't have to like deal with as many clothes?
I would like to commission our guests to do a study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. I was happier being like, slip your Crocs on. Nellie wore like a single dress every day and the same one every day. So there was like nothing. And she doesn't wear underwear because she can't be bothered.
You're not like pulling stuff on, and really like, I mean, shout out to like the Michiganders here, we're not even talking about
I think. Yeah.
Michiganders, excuse me. And if you have a group of them, it's a gaggle. Because we're not even talking about like, multiple layers. Like when I was growing up in Boston, it was like, this time of year there'd be long underwear but also children were roamed free then. So we dressed ourselves. Yeah. In the age of pulling stuff over your kid's head, I would think that like just the same little dress a day is.
I think that was honestly what I tasted that I'm missing the most is the ease of like mornings, like the ease. Well,
let's just complicate the kind of correlation here that like also you didn't have anywhere to be.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm coming off of the like morning routine and I get it. My daughter is basically like, she's just done with mornings. She's like, this is a setup and I'm not going to play by it. And she's starting to do the, like, I'm just not going to get up and go to school thing, which is a slippery slope. But
gives me panic to hear about that. Like sometimes when they say no enough times or hard enough, I sort of get panicky because
I don't want them to understand that I have no power.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I can't physically drag you to school every single day. Like if you really dug your heels in, eventually I might give up. I don't know.
Right. There's only so much. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I think I have a whole theory that I think like kids are quiet quitting right now. Like I am kind of, or some of them quite loudly, like in my practice, I do a lot of like parent coaching and, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay. I just got a note.
Speaking
I
of
just got a
kids.
note. The emergency bulletin. There was an intruder in my studio and I just got a note. It's like cut like a little protest
It's so
sign,
cute.
which is pretty cool. That says, "Can you bring my red shoes to the movie, Momo?" We're going to see Wizard of Oz today. But I think that kids are just done. I think kids are like calling foul on this whole system.
Yeah, it's that time of year. I think it's like we don't have spring break. It's still a ways away. There's like everyone needs a break and everything feels kind of
drudgery. I think the world is on fire. There's also that. Right. And we don't have snow here, but it's been like pouring rain. And I have been wearing the same clothes and I would say depressed, but I'm on the Lexapro for my vestibular disorder, though it really helps with I'll take the mood regulation. And you basically like, I can't cry. So to me, like the last few days of like just gushing rain has been like this like surrogate like expression of emotion that my smoothed over medicated moods don't allow me to express. So
fascinating.
It's feeling hard.
Yeah, I've been pondering.
It's not just the kids.
I've been wondering if I should take a medication. It's just so but I know that like when the sun, it is related. You're in California, so you have sun, but like I do think
sometimes
a sun factor.
Sure. It's like don't make decisions at 3 a.m. I guess you could say the same thing about
for February. Yeah.
But
it's just the worst. And I don't care, but like no one Valentine's Day, I'm just gonna talk about it very briefly, but like
you have 30 seconds to talk about Valentine's Day. That's all I will tolerate.
My 2 kids are at 2 different schools, and so I've gotten 2 different emails about what they want and what they don't want, and I've read them both like 3 times, and it will not stay in my head. Like it's like I can't remember.
You know why? Because it's trash, and your head wasn't made for trash. Your head was made for beautiful, complicated things.
Thank you.
I think we should bring on our guests because I've told you that the principal at my kids' school has just opted out of these things.
Including Valentine's Day?
Yes, there are no in-school holidays. He talks about it from like an equity standpoint that we have kids who don't celebrate these things. We have a wide socioeconomic range. And he's like, we have a, racial achievement gap. Like let's focus on learning. Yeah. And then they do like after school stuff like this slammin' Valentine's Day dance that my kids still allow me to go to, maybe the last year. But so we don't do like sharing Valentines and shit. And I do think, as our guest helps me remember in her writing, like it's one of those places where like the cage was unlocked the whole time, or like we're not breaking the fourth wall of like there might be like another way to kind of a sideways way to live a better parental existence with this stuff. I know it's hard I can't tell you to like, pick up and move schools. So maybe she'll have some suggestions for how to like be the change at, where you are for next Valentine's Day.
I like that. Well, all
right. Let's see.
You let everyone know who she is.
Okay. We've already made a lot of promises, Katherine. I'm so sorry.
Piled it high.
So Katherine Goldstein is here today. She's a journalist covering caregivers and gender equity in a lot of places in the workplace. She's written about mothers being pushed out of the workforce and how we can transform care in this country. Yeah, it needs work. And she runs the Double Shift newsletter. She's had a great podcast under that name, and their community, which looks at the intersection between work and care. Welcome, Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Katherine, who is caring for your 3 kids right now?
The fine ladies and a few gentlemen of the Durham public school system.
Let's hear it for the few gentlemen.
They are all, as of this year, all enrolled in public school that is across the street from our house. So that is
great. Are they doing Valentine's Day?
I have not heard anything.
Yes.
Were I to hear
Ooh.
anything, I would ignore it.
Don't ask, don't tell.
See,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. I could, the emails, they come through. The one from the preschool had a parenthetical, please read in the subject line. And it was sort of just like so sad and like I love the teacher that I was like, oh, it got me right in the like
You had to,
I
yeah.
had to read it. But the one from the elementary school, I think I could pretend I didn't get.
The I think that the school appears to be going harder than ever on Black History Month, so I'm fine with that as the focus for February.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big thing at our school. It's like the school population and I think the staff is majority Black. So we have like this big celebration and it's Black History Month Spirit Week this week. Today was Dress to Impress Day.
Oh,
And my son is wearing a suit and bow tie.
what?
But with like it's like with the Valentine's Day and the Spirit Week stuff, it's also like, you know, sometimes your kids don't actually care. And so it's like ignoring the email is a good thing. Like maybe
Mm.
I reminded my like a dum dum I reminded my kids of the Spirit Day today. And then it like caused a thing and maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah, my kids thankfully are too, or at least my elder who goes to school is too sensorially like particular to participate in
Yeah, he's
any kind
dressing
of
to
spirit.
not have a meltdown. I get
Yeah,
it.
his spirit is to wear the same clothes every day, just like me.
Katherine, can I ask, you have a like a how old are you have like a fourth grader?
Yes, I have a fourth grader who's 9.5, and I have twins who are about to turn 5.
Yeah, do you know that the last two words of your website bio are pandemic twins? It was
Yeah.
just like a total mic drop to be
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel that that is a professional accomplishment, and I
put
include
it
it
on your
in.
resume.
I usually, and you know how it's like in bios, people are like, and they live in Wichita with their husband, son, and 3 dogs, and I'm like, and I live in Durham with my husband, 3 young kids, including pandemic twins. And I'm
Boo,
just
boo, 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 boo.
having people just think about that.
It is
Hmm.
true. The
Maybe
last thing
they
on the
want
bio
that
is
info.
yeah, it's always something unimpressive, like, and they're turtle Gerald. And you're like, no, I had twins in a fucking pandemic.
I
Like,
do love when it
boss.
opens like an entire other portal into the person. You're like, whoa,
Did you
okay.
give birth? Like, when were they born?
So their birthday is February 12th, 2020. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
were 1 month before lockdown started. So I very fortunately did not uh, give birth during early pandemic
Yeah.
hospital situations, but
But
I
you were
had,
isolated with twins and a
yes,
5-year-old or something.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Holy cow. Okay.
Did they
I
come
will.
out with little Valentines to trade on February 12th?
You know, they didn't, but actually, Valentine's Day is a dumb holiday in my opinion, but we brought them home from the hospital on Valentine's Day, so I have like very warm feelings about that.
Okay, I
That's
like it
nice.
now. You got me. Well, Catherine, we've been interested in so many facets of your work for some time now, but we put out this urgent call to you to join us today to talk about childcare and the summer. Um, if you're at home or, making Valentine's listening to this, you might be thinking, but the summer is half a year away, Sarah. There are people who don't even know they're pregnant yet who will be having babies this summer. But as many of our listeners understand, particularly for parents of school age children, the summer, once a time of possibility and joy and, surfing that happened between June and August, is now a 6 to 8 month planning endeavor that requires like high level project management skills, thousands of dollars, and the ability to navigate what is actually like some of the planet's most poorly designed websites. I don't know why. I think that is like we need some federal funding for enhancing the websites of summer camps.
Good
Um,
luck.
so, so Catherine, you've written about what you refer to as summer childcare bingo, but you're doing something unorthodox this summer. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, I can. I can tell you about it directly, or I can tell you the logistical and social failures that have led me to do it. Which do you want to talk about
A
How
and
about
first?
a
then
little bit of
B.
both? Yeah.
Tell us where we are and how we got here, and then
Tell
how
us
we got
what you,
here.
or yeah, tell us what you're doing and then tell us why.
So the first half of the summer, from like when school gets out in mid-June to mid-July, my three kids will be with a longtime caregiver that we have known, like full time during the day. And she will be taking them to like the YMCA pool, the local children's museum, etc. And then the second half of the summer, we as a family are going to Costa Rica for 5 weeks, and I'm enrolling the three children in summer camp there.
Yeah.
And before you were like, wow, that sounds like an amazing, awesome, rich person thing to do, I just want to let you know this whole thing costs the same as just sending the three kids to American summer camp for the whole summer.
Like including income loss or are you working while you're there?
So we are going to be working while we're there. My
Okay.
husband both have the ability to work remotely.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, you did this. I appreciate so much when people actually spell out the financials of something. Like, it's so hard to talk about money, and it's so important, I think, especially when we're thinking about like trying to break out of something, that there are all of these unspoken things that have to do with our resources. And so, on the Double Shift newsletter, you like literally spelled out dollar for dollar how this works, and your math checks out.
Yes. I think that so basically what I concluded was, this is like a turning point year because um my twins are aging into summer camp, and
Yes.
then my oldest son is still in summer camp age, which is he's like pretty mature, so there's not that many more years of summer camp left, I think, for him. So when we realized we were cost wise, when we realized going from one kid in summer camp to three, and I live in Durham, North Carolina, which is, I would say, a moderate cost of living area. It's not, I'm sure you have listeners in the high cost of living areas. It's not in that kind of top 10 New York, LA, California kind of cost, but so a moderate cost for summer camp, sending them to moderately cost camps, not the most expensive ones, or an expensive one and then a cheap one, like mixing it out to even
Right.
out. It was going to be a little over $10,000 to send them to 10 weeks of
Yep.
summer camp.
Yep. That tracks. That tracks.
And that is sort of what broke me thinking about spending $10,000 on that, because I am cheap and I don't want to spend $10,000 on something that I don't enjoy and that they will start complaining about halfway through, and just so I can work and stay in Durham, which is like 100 degrees for many months.
Yeah. I mean, cheap, $10,000 is steep. Cheap is like my dad, never bought Tupperware, and he would just put tinfoil on the hot pot from the stove and put it right into the fridge. That's cheap.
Yeah.
But I think staring down $10,000 again for something that isn't, doesn't really bring any joy, at least to you, and plus, I mean, there's all this, there's so much about how particular kids interact with the summer care system too, right? Like,
Sure.
I have had some luck that I don't really know where it came from. I do have a kid who, this is surprising, but I have kids who like mostly will go to any summer camp. But for a lot of parents, that's not the case too. So like, it's not just about spending the money. It's about like, I'm gonna have to, battle with my kid or convince my kid or like try to interact with this place that doesn't understand my kid and says that they might be able to serve them, but in the end won't. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of parents of, neurodivergent and disabled kids, like summer camp isn't really an option anyway.
Totally. And I think that is a population that is so underserved and like basically just ignored by
Yeah.
our summer care system. And I think even though similarly, I think, I have kids who I could send to most summer camps, like they could complain about individual things, but I don't have those kinds of particular challenges. One of the things I find so demoralizing about summer camp is the feeling on Sunday night of what fresh logistical hell am I going to face tomorrow with the packing lists that are like 17 items long, the like drop off procedures, the instructions about the lunch, the pickup procedures, and all of that just feels like a kind of just like that I'm paying so much money to do that. Just also, again, I guess it's not cheap. It's just like a values driven choice about things that I do and don't want to pay for.
Right.
And that experience is so inferior to our school experience that it just feels really daunting from a mental load perspective. And our older son, we got him to pack his own bag. We would print out the packing list every week and he would have to pack it or whatever. But starting
Bravo.
with 5-year-olds, like, it's not going to be like that. So, yes.
Yeah, when you talk about values, I'm assuming having read your work and listening to you talk about like not reading the Valentine's Day email and going to the public school across the street that, for your own comfort and probably for some larger reasons, you like to keep things kind of simple
Yes.
with your child rearing. And so yes, summer, depending on how you do it, it's really set up to be not that. And for the complexity to not be joyful. I'll take a joyful complexity, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's one thing to do that as part of like, we're going to go on this like amazing life-changing hike, and you have to be sure you have all these specific things.
right.
You'll be at the YMCA all day, kid. And for some
Right.
reason, you needed 14 rainbow stickers. I don't know.
Right. Or you're going to have like a really shitty day and they won't let you do the activity. Yeah, I love like the Sunday night realizing that the camp only goes from like 9:30 to 2:30.
Horrible.
It's just, and last summer I don't know, I just panicked. It's like, this is February. Like, it was one of those things when I had preschool age kids that I thought parents were overdoing. I thought it was kind of like a myth of overbearing modern parenting that you had to start thinking about this in January. And I was like, well, you guys are suckers and I don't need to like optimize summer. So when it comes time for me to do this, I'm just going to not do that. And then, like you said, my kids kind of graduated into summer camp, right? It's very shocking that first year, if you send them to kind of a lot of preschools are year round, to find yourself with like this kind of drop off in June or May. And I was like, no, this is real. Like, this is just kind of, I mean, there's a little bit of, like the public camps that Oakland runs, they sign up a little bit later, like February, and some of them you can find something later. There's always like little weird camps that no one signed up for, but it still might be $500 a week. And I just panicked last year and signed them up it was my first year with two, signed them up for like totally different camps in different places. And then we called on our community, but Jesus, it was just, I got nothing done all summer, basically, and spent $10,000.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, when I was growing up, so I have a kid who's, first grade, and then I have a preschooler. And her preschool is not year round. It's not even full day.
Is it really? Yeah, exactly. Does it really operate during the school year?
No. And I have real issues with the 40-hour work week anyway. Like, I don't want to work 40 hours a week. Yeah. And that's my privilege, right? Like we have, my husband does, and that pays for our life and blah, blah, blah. But I do think that all of this points to, like, I was on the phone with a friend last night who's trying to figure her life out and has some stuff going on. And she hasn't worked full time since becoming a parent, and she's considering how to do that. And she was like, but what do I do? Because her kids get sick a lot, and she was like, what do I do? And then what about summer? And and that was a big factor when I got laid off from Romper. Part of the relief was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna not work full time because this doesn't work very well with kids actually, and we'll save a lot of money and a lot of stress if I just am flexible. And summer can just be, like I was telling Sarah, I don't really have a plan for summer, and I get all these texts about signing up for camps that are like, yeah, $500 a week. That, I mean, I don't have that. Even if I needed it, I don't have that. I don't know. When I worked at Romper, I couldn't have paid for that. It's just the whole system is really bananas. But also so I don't really have plans, but I don't work full time, so I could work all weekend. And my husband could work all week, and we could tag team. I could work in the evenings and I could work on the weekends, and I guess that's a privilege because there's flexibility in that. But I feel like people are sort of cobbling together, even the summer camp conversation, oh, which one do I sign up for or whatever, seems to leave out a lot of people who are opting out kind of in the way that we are, and other people I know who are oh, I'm going to cobble something together, and it's going to involve neighbors or a relative or and I think that's interesting. And also you're mentioning, Catherine, your kid is gonna maybe age out. Could your kid just watch a lot of TV all summer or something?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, is that I won't want him to play video games all summer. So then the question is what he does in a society that closes off a lot of avenues towards kids being in public alone, even if they are perfectly capable of doing that. We don't live in an area with good public transportation. I think that the tweener age before they're old enough to get a summer job is actually another really difficult thing. And I think what what all of our individual stories highlight is that basically these are systemic problems that have been thrown back on families for everyone individually to start from scratch to figure out what they're going to do. And whatever your unique combination of factors are. And basically, we are all in our individual child rearing lives. Basically, it's demanded of us to reinvent the wheel and reinvent it every summer. Yeah. Many summers based on many factors. And it's a huge waste of energy. And it's basically a systemic government failure. It doesn't have to be this way. This is a policy choice. And there have been opportunities both in the recent history and in long-term history that could have changed this, that this country didn't take. And I think, the thing that really changed my thinking about it was last year I wrote a newsletter where I asked a bunch of people in different countries, how does your country handle summer?
I loved that.
And basically, as someone who has, worked at a think tank and done policy research, I was expecting they basically have something better going on. Mm-hmm. But I think that what was amazing was I asked some people in non-Western countries as well, but what was really amazing is, yes, they not only have some situations better, but basically nobody has it as bad as us. So basically the combination for America is we have no paid no mandated paid vacation time, extra long summers, no subsidized summer care camps, and a culture that really does not support kids doing things alone. So no other Western country has all of that badness in one country. Mm-hmm. Some of them, some have some things that are stronger than others, but nobody has that specifically horribly toxic mix. So that to me, and also interestingly, this was like by far the most read thing I've ever written on my newsletter. Like people were really, really interested in this. And so that is also kind of when I wrote that last summer got me thinking about the idea of opting out of summer camp entirely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering when you first kind of started brainstorming around that idea. I also
being the
I
Finland
like the
you want to see in the world, in the country.
And I think like having summer, not to be like Lala about it, but like we started this episode, like I am living for summer. Like I don't want it to be a problem. Like I want time with my kids. I want them home. I'm sick of this grind. Like, and then also like work has to happen and all this stuff. So another thing I like, Katherine, about your solution is like there is fun.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there's good. Your kids will have a nice, exciting time with you. Like this is something lovely for your family, I think. I mean, it sounds like it.
I hope so. I mean, I think this is also, I recognize there's a huge amount of privilege in this plan because both my husband and I can work remotely. And we also have like, the ability to change our location. And also, some people, even if they do have to work, like don't have the $10,000 budget to spend on summer and they just like suffer basically. So I recognize that there's definitely privilege in having the budget to relocate in this way. But I think also it just really highlights for me like that we've gotten used to or we've socialized that it's normal to spend this much money and that's like considered and that it's also normal to have to compete with other people for childcare. Like and that like everybody, you got to be on the computer at 2 p.m. or you're not going to get that slot.
Yeah, that part is so hard. My son actually made a comment about that when I was like this weekend I was visiting a friend and we were like driving up a mountain and I was like, drive slowly, please, because like the Junior Center of Arts summer camp enrollment, like opens in 2 minutes. And my son was like, well, don't other families want to do that? Like, why are we, like, we don't need to like take it right away, And I was like, yes, we do. It's that scarcity mindset. It's really the opposite of how I want to be with other families.
Right. It's not a scarcity mindset. It is actual scarcity.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel seen. Well, I am doing something. I want to talk about community, and I want to first just share, first of all, that I would like to receive some kind of award because my summer spreadsheet is almost entirely filled. I have 1 week for one kid that is left. We are recording this on February 5th. I'm going to take myself out for something. And I think I was inspired, Katherine, by reading your work, last year on this. I am doing something a little more creative and hopefully more joyous this summer, which is that my husband and I can both also work remotely. We both are from Massachusetts. We live in California, and like a lot of our family is still back there. And so we're gonna house sit for a stranger that we met on a family's Facebook group for Boston for a month, and we're gonna enroll our kids in a local camp. We are enrolling. I signed up. I competed. I squashed the people in front of me in line and left their bodies for the vultures. And so they're signed up for camp there. And we're going to be on the East Coast for like 4 weeks of camp and then 2 to 3 weeks of vacation. And we're going to all get to have that like daily, leisurely, summery time with my family, which I'm super, super excited about.
That's awesome. And I think that, not because, as I mentioned, not everyone can like pull off an international trip like this. There are ways to think about summer outside of these kind of limited, scarce, expensive options. And I think, are there ways to be closer to families? Are there ways to trade off with other families where you are sharing care in a way that makes it more affordable and you build relationships? Like, are there ways to
That's what we're doing. I think that, like, when I was growing up, I told Sarah I was in like a group of girls and we shared a nanny, and then she did after school.
You were in a girl group?
I was in a girl group in elementary school, and it was like, I think first through
you
fifth
were the
grade.
Spicy one.
I definitely was not, but it was like, sometimes a family had like a kind of spacious basement that we were in a lot, and then another family had an attic that I remember spending some summers in, and it was I think there were 5 or 6 of us. It kind of shifted, and we shared a sitter, and she did after schools all year, and then she did summers, and so our summers was that, I mean, hanging out, and our big outings were like a bus ride to the mall. We did that maybe once a month in the summer or something, and we just kind of kicked around and we like amused ourselves, and we had an adult with us, but it wasn't ultra structured, and I think it was lovely, and I think it was like my mom was my primary parent, and didn't get like buckets of child support, and she worked full time. I mean, I think she was making it work, and they all were, and I don't really understand. When I first encountered the flurry of summer camp texts, I was like, where's this? Where's the like, hey, should all of us, instead of texting each other about these weird camps that cost an arm and a leg that might suck, also, like, it's not like because it's $500, it's going to be like archery camp is going to rule. It might just be like some 16-year-old who doesn't know how to interact with children.
Yes.
Probably is that. And so I was like,
Catherine,
let's hire a nanny.
That? Yeah. Are you seeing people do that more?
I definitely think it exists. And if anyone listening wants to contact me through the Double Shift newsletter and Substack and tell me what you're up to, I'd love to hear about it for many, many reasons. But I think it does exist, but it doesn't exist in the same way that has, I think there's a bunch of cultural reasons. One, I think that we, as a parenting culture, are less comfortable with I'm air quoting unenriched time, like what you're describing, Miranda, even though people would say, oh yeah, that's so great, I love that in my own childhood. Now people feel like somehow their kid is going to be left behind. I think the specter of screens and devices and feeling like, are you actually going to be able to keep your kids from watching YouTube videos all summer feels like a lot of pressure. I think we have less close relationships with friends and other parents to build those bonds. And I think that the cost of that nanny has gone up a lot also. And then I also think like we have a lot of people are really into making what I would call artisanal parenting choices. And part of doing a group of 5 people is a level of compromise about what kids are going to do that we are not in practice doing in our parenting choices.
So how do we build those muscles?
Well, great. You should ask, Sarah, because I am writing an entire book about community building.
Woo!
And I think that basically, the thing is that what happens is also, I think we are more parents. We have more parents who are working outside the home and are more stressed about like logistics. And they're like, okay, we'll just like, I'll pay some amount of money so I can drop my kid off. Like I can't deal with all of these different things of setting something like this up. And I think also part of the thing is like, you think about it in January when you're signing up for camp, and then you're like, wow, this really sucks. Wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to do this and that we could have this like group of 5 and that would be wonderful. And then other things in life happen and you are not taking the steps to cultivate those relationships so you could know the people that you could do that with. And then you're busy signing your kids up for a bunch of extracurriculars with parents you don't know, or like you're busy and you don't get to know your neighbors. And then all of a sudden it's January again. You're like, I would like to do that, but I only kind of know one person who might do that with me. And then the cycle continues in that way. So I do think there's ways to break out of it. But there's no like overnight solution. It really involves it like intentionally investing in relationships and in a concerted way and investing time in them. And a lot of times people think it's easier to just buy a slot in a camp.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it probably is.
Yeah.
I also, thinking about community building and parenthood, and I think this comes into play too. Something that I have realized I struggle with is asking for help, and that vulnerability that is like exposed when you do that. And, I've focused a lot of my work on like postpartum well-being. And I realized that it's not like that there aren't people there who would love to help me. It's that I struggled to say what I needed. And that goes back to, of course, like very American individualism and like I can do it myself and whatever. And I think I feel like that is part of the camp thing is like I figured it out. Here's not to throw you under the bus here, but like my spreadsheet's full. Like I did it.
Yeah, no, make fun of me. I got it.
I didn't do anybody else, and I didn't ask anyone for anything. I did it. I did it. Yeah. And it's like, totally. I think what I have, it's taken like 2 years, but there's another mom that I've cultivated a you help me, I help you relationship with. And there's so many factors that make it work. One, I would say number one is that she lives a block away from me. Number two is that our kids are roughly the same age. We each have 2 kids. They're roughly the same age. So we've got the preschoolers together. We've got the first graders together. So there's all these stars that align, but also like Griffin's neighborhood public school is full of parents who do generally align with me in some way. Or if they have an older kid, I can hit them up for like babysitting because I'm okay with like a 10-year-old hanging out with my kid while I get some work done. And so like, but I think
but you're not asking for it all the time.
Right. And I've had to say it, but I am also, I have totally stuck myself out and been like, hey, kind of random text messages. And I think like, hey, does your kid babysit? Is that weird? And I think
if you say, is that weird at the end of any ask for help, it's fine.
I think that's the key to asking for help, right? Just be like, sorry if this is weird, but
or this is hard. Sometimes I will just say,
I was going to say, drop the this is weird.
Okay, Katherine says, don't apologize.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'm curious to hear, Katherine, like what because that really, once I kind of realized that was one of my biggest issues with community building was like, I got to ask for help. And then people love that. Right. I think it makes people feel invited into your world.
And they have permission to do the same.
Yeah. Yes.
I think expressing vulnerability and asking for help is a huge, huge barrier to community building. And so we think we are I think that it's important for us to start talking about that, not as a badge of pride, but actually a hindrance for us making meaningful relationships. And I think also, I've been on a very long personal journey with this. I was in the Never Ask People for Help camp for a long, long time. But I think also thinking about it, what it deprives other people from is another way of thinking about it. Not just I need something, but like, you are also, when you don't ask for help, you also deny them the opportunity to start building a deeper relationship with you and creating mutuality and reciprocity. And so that might also be a way to help people think about breaking out of it a little bit. And just another plug for community. One of the things that I think is great about, creating groups that sort of have mutuality and where people all know each other rather than just, I know this one person, I know this friend, I have another friend over here, is that it also is such a great like logistical solution. For example, I asked, I'm in a group of moms in Durham who are all interested and active in political stuff. And I was like, hey, does anybody know a face painter I'd already does anyone know a face painter to come to my kid's birthday that's not like hundreds of dollars? And I'd already like asked if one of their kids could do it, but she was busy. And one of the women in the group, who is like a high-powered doctor, was like, I love to face paint. I would come and do the face paint for your kid's birthday party. Now, a version of me would have said, oh my God, that's so nice of you. But no, how can I ask this wonderful neighbor who's an important doctor to come face paint at the 5-year-old's birthday? But I was like, you know what? This is an opportunity to deepen our relationship. And I was like, she offered in a genuine way, and I accepted. So Dr. Amy will be doing the face paint at the 5-year-old's birthday. But that's a way to also, like, I didn't individually text 12 people for recommendations, and I wouldn't have necessarily texted her to ask her if she had a face painter recommendation. Like, it wouldn't have occurred to me. So I think that that's another way to sort of think about how we can like invest in sort of group circles of care.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's like an offering in there too. You know, she saw an opportunity to make an offering. That's also how you build those muscles. I mean, I'm thinking about, you know, how we talk about boundaries as intimacy. That also kind of both offering and asking is also building intimacy. Yeah, I'm really fortunate. But I'm thinking about how to kind of build my muscles even within the situation that I have, which is a number of really, really helpful, connected families from my kids' school. There's a lot of people, like next week, my husband and I are, I hope, trigger warning, we're going to Mexico without our children. And yeah, and just like the first person we asked is picking our kids up and taking them to school every day so that my brother-in-law who's coming to take care of the kids can work in the mornings. And so, yeah, and we do that like the first week of school. Of course, after school doesn't happen. It hasn't started yet, and school gets out at 1:15. And so that week yeah, of course, it's like naturally. So that week we always kind of end up having shifts, and it brings me so much joy to take care of their kids or pick them up from school. I'm like champing at the bit to do it.
Yeah, too. I love hanging out with. I mean, I like kids. I totally respect that not every parent really wants to hang out with other people's kids, but I really like it, and I think I take other people's kids maybe more than other people take my kids. Also because one of my kids is not super flexible, and so. But I'm really genuinely happy to like. If I've got 2 kids, I really don't mind 2 more. Like, you know, and it actually makes my life easier a lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that also, you know, those, like, if you think about the joy of, oh, this makes my life better, and I'm happy to do, if I'm free, I'm happy to do it. Like, think about that you deprive other people of that when you don't ask. So that's also something to sort of try to help people get over those hurdles a little bit.
I have another one that has just started, which is that I have a friend who goes on Mondays. Every Monday she doesn't work. She works 4 days a week. And on Mondays she goes shopping at the Berkeley Bowl, which is like this local kind of famous grocery store that has a produce section that's like the size of a regular grocery store. And I love their food, but I hate shopping at the Berkeley Bowl. It's a sensory overload for me. Like I always like start out delighted and kind of panic halfway through the aisles and just kind of like abandon my cart. And I don't have the time. It's like a big endeavor. I like a little store that I can run into. But I, on Thursdays, go to Trader Joe's because that's right next to the dance class that I do every Thursday morning. So I was just hearing her talk about this, and I was like, hey, I'll go to Trader Joe's for you and get your stuff if you get my stuff at Berkeley Bowl. And so we have a little system. We've been texting each other a list at 9 a.m. on those respective mornings, and we live very close to each other, and you just drop off the bags on the porch. No, we're friends, but it's like, we're not adding in contact, and with the receipt, and then the person Venmos you. And so I've been getting, it's amazing. Yeah. And I love shopping for her. Yeah. I love picking out the pouches that her 5-year-old loves to eat and being like, I'm like caring for my friend.
I love that. It's beautiful, Sarah. That's lovely.
I also just want to say, like, if people feel like they don't have these relationships and connections yet, like, I really don't want anyone to feel bad
Mm-hmm.
because I think that there's a lot of reasons that we are pretty isolated. Some have to do with like macro trends in our society, some have to do with being out of practice in the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
of really interacting with people. So if anyone's like, oh, I don't have that, I feel so bad. What have I done wrong? I don't want anyone to feel like that.
Yeah.
I think this is a muscle. Again, this is when we're starting from when we don't have this. This is like not to. This is basically like doing a couch to 5K or something. Like you have to like start small. You are not gonna just get up and run that 5K after you've been sitting on the couch. It doesn't matter if you've run a 5K like 10 years ago, like you still have to, practice. So I just want to.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
really
helpful.
appreciate, and I want to add to that, like, I didn't find, when my kids were little, and then it was the pandemic, people were like, oh, my mom group text or whatever. And we had never done daycare or anything. And I was like, I don't have that. Like, I guess other moms hate me, or whatever. And I was like, it was just, how you are. And then we joined school, and it was like the neighborhood school was
The big turn.
what clicked it. And my circle of moms went from like 2 people I kind of randomly knew to like 45 families, like basically overnight. And I volunteered for the most low lift job, and it was still too much of a lift. And this other mom also kind of volunteered for it. And so we decided to split the work, which created a bond with her and then allowed me to like have access to everyone in the class's email address. And so now I have a lot of people who I can contact.
Well, I also hear you saying, Katherine, that like if I'm going to take this metaphor to the moon and back by adding another metaphor, that like it's not your fault that you're on the couch. It's like it's not a moral failure that you don't have community. That there are a lot of insidious ways that like this was all set. This is a setup, and so you're going to have to fight to dig yourself out of this because the system is designed to keep you on the couch.
Yes, the system, yes. And it's interesting you use the word fight because I think we have to change some of our habits and patterns, but I actually don't see it as a fight. I see it as an immense opportunity for us to create like a joyful and more connected life. And I think that we have to get out of the idea that I think that things can feel really hard to start, but it's really about taking very small steps. And actually, this relates very perfectly to my latest project.
Yeah, you launched today, right? Congratulations, the How to Find Your People Club. I've signed up. Tell me about how that works.
So basically, I'm writing a book called How to Find Your People, which is a guide to the transformative power of community. And what I realized was that I wanted to start sharing what I'm learning with my Substack community before the book comes out, which is not and probably until 2027 because book publishing is very slow. And also have to write the whole book. But what I'm excited about is basically like I'm trying out a lot of the research and ideas that I'm getting from writing the book. I am now trying out with the club. So I'm going to give people exercises and activities and like actual concrete things to try.
I love exercises, not physical ones.
Like there's even a game that I'm going to roll out that's about talking to strangers. And I wish that everyone could see your face. It is very enthusiastic.
Well, you know what it is? I love being good at something. I'm like, I will fucking kill at the talking to strangers game. Many who know me would say I'm too good.
Yes. Well, this is really interesting because as a journalist, I don't have a hang up about talking to strangers, but a lot of people do.
Absolutely. We do something called Strangerpedia, where if my kids are like, what's the tallest mountain? I'm like, you got to ask the next person that walks by. But they're old enough now that they're like mortified by it.
Yeah, no, but I a lot of, and this is a skill we've really gotten out of practice of, and our like the fact that like we order everything online and we don't go to the grocery store and all these things also means we're talking to strangers less, or we have our headphones in, or we're looking at our phone. Like,
yeah,
stranger practice muscle has gotten very weak. And part of the reason, it's not that I think you're going to make your best friends and find immediate community because you like chatted with someone on the subway, but if you don't ever talk to anyone you don't know, it's very hard to form new relationships. So that's just one of the things that we're going to do in a game. And I'm going to have one of our first exercises is like sort of mapping where your friendships are and where your community is, and actually just helping people understand what community is, because actually I find in my conversations people do not know. So that is coming.
What do you mean people don't know? Like what do people think it is that's different from your definition?
So basically people think like anyone you know is a community or your community, or like if you go, or like, but basically I think communities are sort of circles of mutuality where you have like similar values or a shared sense of stakes or some kind of membership. Like you have a reason for existing in that circle. And a lot of times I think people mistake that for friendship networks, and friendship networks is just like anyone you know. But it's actually really helpful to have groups where there's some sort of shared value, identity, or sense of stakes, because that's like a magnet that keeps you together.
Yeah. That tracks for me. That's so exciting to me, because I often I think there's a lot of probably people listening who share these communal values. And we hear over and over again, I think you articulate it really well, but just maybe kind of why we don't have community and even what it might look like. Like I used to live across the fence from co-housing. I've talked about this, and my family annexed ourselves and became involved in this co-housing community. And people all the time would be like, oh my God, that sounds so amazing. Like you live in this dream world. And I would be like, well, we actually don't live there. We made it happen that we had this connection with them. We sought it out. And part of it was talking to strangers, that I would talk to my neighbor in our driveway. And, after years, he said, why don't you come to potluck with my community, and like opened the door to this magical land, literally. But also, there are ways I think that I felt like when I had those conversations with people, well, you can probably build something like that you are making choices that aren't that. But I really didn't have a sense, and I still don't, about what that would look like. I got lucky living across the fence from a co-housing community. That was part of the equation. And so I do think this is like something people are asking for and want to have conversations around, is like, okay, but what does that actually look like?
Totally. And that's like what the entire book is about. So
I'm so fucking stoked. Okay. So you can join the How to Find Your People Club by going to your Substack, The Double Shift, right?
Yes, and everyone is welcome, and I would love to see you there. And I would just say one quick thing is that I actually think our communities, whether or not we have community, is actually not the result of luck. And I think people think that, but one really interesting thing is, like, for example, you chose to live in a neighborhood that is the kind of neighborhood that would have co-housing, and chose to be the kind of person who would talk to your neighbors, and you chose to then accept the invitation to go to the potluck. So even though it definitely can feel like luck, and a lot of times Americans are really into describing their experiences as luck. That's what we like to do. But I do, but the reason that I want to like push back on that a little is that it doesn't mean that you can't have it if you're not lucky. Like, I think everyone can have it. It's about how we go about the world and where we invest our time and energy and what we choose to do and not do. And it's about where we choose to live. And if we prioritize having a bigger house over a house where we're going to know our neighbors, there's a lot of different things that go into these things. So
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah. Summer 2026.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fuck luck. Yeah, I wanna build something. Before I let you go, Catherine, do you have any culture recommendations for our listeners?
Yes. So I thought about this and I was like, I could say this TV show, I could say this book, but what I think the culture needs right now
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
um,
recommend something to the culture, not from the
I would
culture,
like
please.
the culture directly, which is I went on a like a retreat that was led by an artist that was at this like Catholic retreat center, which was super cool, but not to recommend the retreat. What I want to recommend is I kept my phone off for 48 hours. And
Ooh, I have to up my Lexapro dose for
yeah,
that.
so, but what I want to say, and that's the longest I've had it off since I can remember having a
Yep.
phone, probably, or like college or whatever. And like, you can immediately come at me with all of the reasons why you could never do that. And,
An addict's, it's just an addict's, like, desperate groveling.
my kids had a competent parent who was taking care of them. And I felt if there was an emergency, there'd be almost nothing I could do from this Catholic retreat center 2 hours away. I gave him the number of the Catholic retreat center should someone die, basically.
Yeah.
But I just want to like also I'm not Catholic. Let me just clarify. I feel like I keep saying Catholic retreat center. But
They're just
anyway,
really good at having retreat
there was
centers.
a lot of Virgin Marys. It was a very feminine space. But anyway,
Yeah.
I just want to push back. I just want to challenge you to think about that. And I think that it was a great resetting of my brain. Um, Even if I had been like, I'm not going to look at the news, there could be nothing that flashed about anything Trump was doing. There was
Yeah.
no like enraged text messages from my very life affirming group chat, but that also is like, mad about everything that's going on in the
I
world.
have one of those right now,
Yeah.
which I
And I
love, but
and I just think that like we need to normalize that. This needs to not be like a weird, wild thing that I did. And I think it is important for our brains and our souls to find space. And maybe you can't do it for 48 hours, try 24. Maybe you can't go away, try, I don't know what it's going to take, but try completely turning off your phone for an extended period of time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about like the Shabbat thing. I'm
Yes.
not Catholic either. I'm Jewish, but it doesn't matter. Shabbat's for everyone. I don't like necessarily do that. And there was an interesting Ezra Klein had a guest on who was talking about Shabbat and like to go back to community that like it's really hard to everybody is like, oh yeah, I want to go tech free, but when your community is not doing it, it makes
Yeah.
it difficult. And
Very,
that's
very
why Jews can do Shabbat. It's like if everybody's doing it, you're not
totally
missing out on anything. You're not, no one's expecting that you would be looking
fine. And
at your
that's why,
tech.
being away for 2 days was a great excuse. I'm not having to coordinate a play date. I'm not having to whatever. No one's asking me if, the normal social life things that make you happy and like are part of your life, like you can just turn it off. So sometimes going away, but I agree, it's very hard to do that digital detox or saying you're going to turn everything off in a silo.
But I think that that's where your advice can come in too, is like to say I had a dumb phone for a long time and it required me to say to people, this is how I need you to communicate with me.
Yeah.
And to kind of ask for that and to say that might be inconvenient, or
Yeah.
even with like, parent friends to say like, hey, on Saturdays, I'm not going to get last minute texts. So I know this is well, maybe we're not saying this is so weird, but like, it might feel difficult, but let's pick a time to meet at this
Yeah.
place. And if you're, and we have to kind of remember all those rules. Like if I will wait for you for 15 minutes, like all of that explicit
We
stuff.
did it for a long time. We did it for a long time. And I think our phones also let us be flaky, which is not good for community building. So we could just start the whole podcast over and start talking about this again. But I know
Well, everything's related. It's all one conversation, as the I love If Books Could Kill is such a great podcast. So they talk about self-help books and they're always like, they have a one book theory that like it's really all one book. And I agree, talking about having had all of these conversations about modern parenting, it's many conversations, but the one that rules them all is, I think about, connection versus isolation.
Yeah,
So
sure.
Thank you for having it with us, Katherine.
Yes, thanks for having me.
This has been a delight. Thanks for listening to The Mother of It All. And like my mom always said, get off the couch. The Mother of It All is produced by Opus Knox Media with music from It's Electric. If you like this episode, why not send it to a friend right now? Go on, we'll wait. You can follow us on Substack at themotherofitall.substack.com, where subscribing will get you episodes and bonus posts in your inbox and connect you with the Mother of It All listener community. Plus, become a paid subscriber and get a hot off the presses Mother of It All canvas tote. We're also on Instagram at The Mother of It All, and you can email us anytime with ideas or feedback at motherculturepod@gmail.com.